I'm going to show the stuff that we went over in the advanced post-production class where we showed how to use After Effects to do some animation and some compositing. Um, so today we're going to show a couple of the effects. We're going to show the sparkle on the mouth and a little bit of the masking as well that was discussed with doing like a rotospline, an animated rotospline. So it's mainly animation items we're working with. You'll find the folder on the server, Animation and Rotoscoping. In that, you'll find the trimmed Platinum White West project. It has a basic part of the project edited. And don't open up my edit. It's got the ones with the After Effects files. Open up the Platinum White West project CC. Open that up in Premiere. Okay. Once that's opened up, I'm going to kind of quickly play through this and show you some items in here that we're doing effects on right here where he smiles. We're going to show a sparkle come off of his teeth, and then we're going to show a light hit this guy's face here. We're going to animate a little rotospline to make it look like the light's hitting his face. Later on, we're going to show a different lesson of the gun being drawn and shooting, and then this guy being hit and falling down. So we'll do some effects on those things in a later demonstration, and later on we'll show how to do the smile as well, brighten up the teeth, make them very white in After Effects using rotoscoping once we get into the rotoscoping part. So today is just going to be mainly animation and a little bit of compositing. So right now we're going to right click on this first clip right here. I do not include the audio. If you have to, if it connects to audio, just option select one of these clips and it will just it'll just select the video. Because you don't need to send the audio over to After Effects for these clips at least. So I'm going to right click on that and replace this clip, the first clip, with an After Effects composition and save the project file. And I would say use the same project file to send all your clips to. Just send one clip at a time, but if you have that project file open in After Effects, it will save it. It'll add those compositions to that project file that you have open at the time. Okay, you'll see After Effects open up. If you're on a PC, sometimes After Effects hides behind Premiere. On a Mac, it usually pops up on its own. But if eventually opens it up in After Effects, then on a PC you're going to have to just click on After Effects to open it up. Okay, so once it'll open up After Effects and ask you to save the project, you can just go into the project. You should have dumped the footage to your hard drive or to the desktop of the computer that you're working on. It'll run better. I'm just going to go in here. I've got a little After Effects folder. I'm just going to save that. I've already got one named in here, but I'm going to overwrite it. Actually, I'm going to save over that and replace. But you guys can just save it as whatever you want your After Effects file to be, and save it in there. Then once I've saved, it will have saved this file. Here's the new composition right here for that clip. I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to select it, the composition, hit return. I'm going to call this Teeth Shine 01 because I'm going to do another one, the close-up. This is the medium shot. I can even add MS for medium shot on this. Hit return, and it saves that composition. Now this timeline or that composition has that clip in it. And I'm going to end up sending the next clip, the next edit. You'll notice it edits if I go to Premiere. It will edit from this clip here to the close-up right there. We're going to do two different shots. In fact, if you want to, you can actually send this one over right away as well, and we'll work on that after we're done with the first shot. So replace with After Effects composition, and it'll bring it up as a second composition. It brought over the footage. There's the footage, as well as the footage from the first one, and the new composition here. Just give it this random name, or not this random name, this name based off of the project file. I'm just going to hit return and change this, and we're going to call it the same thing, Teeth Shine 02 CU for close-up. So now we have two compositions. You double click on the first one, those are medium shot. Double click on the next one, those are close-up. So we're going to start on the medium shot, start working on this one. So the first thing we're going to want to do is watch where he opens his teeth here. Actually, we're going to put a shine on his teeth, but we notice that his teeth kind of move around like this, so we're going to do some motion tracking with it to track the shine onto his teeth. First of all, let's kind of create a quick little shine thing to start with. What we're going to do is we're going to go up and click on this little box shape here, hold it down, your mouse, and it'll bring up in this menu, and you can say Star Tool. I'm going to choose the Star Tool. But now one thing you got to notice is if you click and drag and it starts creating a mask like this, you'll notice one thing, it's got the clip selected here. So if a clip is selected, it turns these items up here into a mask. Otherwise, if it's not, if you want a shape, you have to have everything deselected. So I'm going to undo that, Control Z or Apple Z, and now I'm going to deselect the clip, click into a blank area down here, and it's deselected. Now I'm going to click and drag, and it will create a shape here. So I've got the star shape. Just click and drag, and it will make your little star shape. I'm going to grab this here. It shows my arrow tool. I'm going to grab this, move it down. Let me change my resolution here since I'm recording. It's kind of slowing down a bit. But now the star is red. We want to change this to a white star. Up here, you'll notice as long as we have this selected, you see the fill and stroke here. Fill is the color, and then the stroke is the outside border color. So I'm going to get rid of the border completely. I'm going to select that number, hit 0, enter, and it gets rid of the border completely. Now I'm going to click on this fill here. I'm going to bring this up, and I'm going to change this to white because we want it to be bright, shiny white. There we go, bright, shiny white star. But now we want a 4-point star. If we were doing a sparkle, we want it to be more like 4-point star. I'm going to go down under the shape layer. You'll notice it's created the shape layer down here. After I drag that in, it's created the shape layer. And under that we have contents. If you don't see this, just hit arrow down like that, and you'll see contents, and under contents you'll see Polystar. Under Polystar you'll see Polystar Path 1, naming it after the Polystar 1. So I'm going to go under Polystar Path 1, and you'll notice it's got points under here. I'm going to change, this is all the attributes for this star for its shape. I'm going to type in 4, enter for 4 points, and it'll change it to this little, and after you have that 4-point star, we're going to do a couple different things here. We've got some other features here we're going to mess with. Expand this and kind of look at these here. We've got inner radius, outer radius, inner roundness. If you change the inner radius, you'll see what's happening here is this is growing thinner. Yeah, sorry, this is such crummy quality on this computer here. Let's see if I can do half quality here. But we're going to mess with this inner radius here, make this thing thinner. And one thing you'll probably want to mess with is the inner roundness as well, and kind of fatten up the center there. As you change that, notice that it'll change the fatness of the roundness there. We can go, let's make this larger, or let's mess with this a little bit. Kind of like that because the center's getting fatter there on the inner roundness there. The center's getting fatter, and the outside's getting thinner, so it looks a little bit more like a typical sparkle, I guess you could say. So what we're going to do now is we're going to grab the edge here. Actually, we can going to grab the edge here and shrink it down. I'm going to hold down Shift to constrain proportions and make it about as big as we want it to get for this shot, because it's going to continue on, cut to the next shot while this thing grows even larger. So we're going to do a couple of things with animation. We're going to rotate this. It's going to rotate and grow at the same time. What we want to do is when he moves his mouth, we want this to track to his mouth because his mouth moves. So a couple things we're going to do here is, first of all, we're going to make a motion track. We're going to make some motion track data out of this clip here with his face moving. I'm just going to turn off the shape layer right now, turn the eyeball off. So it's still there, but it's just invisible. I'm going to go up to the workspace, pull this down and tell it to view the workspace as a motion tracking workspace. It'll bring up this little area over here to do motion tracking. I'm going to go up to the tracker and hit track motion. It'll bring up one of these little pixel trackers here. I'm going to zoom up to this a little bit. I'm going to grab this and move this over. And we discussed in class a good spot to track was this spot on his nose. There's some spots on his teeth that would work as well, but this is a good spot right there. I'm going to zoom up a little closer to this. Grab the hand tool, H for hand tool. Move this over. And now I'm V for back to the arrow tool. I'm going to zoom up on this. I'm going to make this inner square a little so it includes all this area here for tracking right there. So it'll include that whole spot with this as as a kind of a solid keyframe or a solid pixel to track onto. You make this a little bit bigger if you want to include the kind of the outer extreme of the area for it to track, but this is really the area it's going to concentrate on right there. So now I'm going to zoom out just a teeny bit here, and now I'm going to go over here and hit Analyze Forward. What this did was when we opened up the tracker and did track motion, it did open up that clip, just the clip, as its own, as a layer. We're no longer in the composition, but it's going to apply that back to the composition later. But it did open this clip up in a separate window as just to grab some tracking data from this. I'm going to hit this to track forward. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, yeah, let's do track forward. His mouth isn't opened yet, so this precedes his mouth opening up. If you do track from here on forward and you need to get tracking data for the whole clip, we can go back and fix that. So I'm going to hit Analyze Forward and watch this, and it is tracking really well to his nose there. That tracked really well, but notice my keyframes down here. It kind of stops right here. That's going to be enough tracking, but just to make sure, I'm going to track backwards as well and get the rest of this whole clip tracked. So now it's going backwards, and now I've got the tracking data for the whole clip. Right there. It tracks to his nose with the movement of his teeth because his nose moves at the same speed as his teeth, so that works. I forgot to add a null object, so I'm going to go up to Layer, add a new null object. If you forgot to do this, that's fine. I should have done that as the first step, but now I added the null, and notice because the null wasn't there, it just said, do you want to add this data to the shape layer? I'm going to say no. I'm going to edit target and make this a null. If the null was there, it would have automatically gone to the null, but I forgot to do that. So I'm going to, so this is good in case you forget as well. Then you can add the null, and you want to do that before you do anything else so it doesn't get rid of your tracking data. Now that my motion target is null 1, you got to make sure that it's that. I'm going to apply. It'll say to X and Y axis, yes. And there we go. And now my null object, you'll notice, tracks with his face. As I play through this, you'll notice this null object follows the motion of his face here, and that tracking data is there. So there we go, it tracks to his face. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this shape layer. I'm going to turn back on the shape layer. It's right about where I want it. I'm going to move it just a little bit, probably over to the side of the teeth right here, right about there. And now I'm going to grab this pick whip down here, and I'm going to parent it to the null object like that. So it follows that tracking data that's been applied to the null. Now as we play through this, you'll notice the sparkle follows his mouth and locks to his mouth. I do want that probably a little higher. So I'm going to grab that because when he smiles I want that a little higher. So I'm going to move it up higher there, and it will still use the relative data to track. Now watch when he opens his mouth, the sparkle is right there on the tooth. Now we're going to animate this sparkle so it starts when he smiles and grows and rotates a little bit, and we'll do a couple other effects to it to make it look a little bit better. So on to the next step. Okay, so the next step is to start animating some features here. We motion track this still image to the to his teeth, and now we're gonna do some animation stuff here. We're gonna first of all, we're gonna animate the shape layer. So we're gonna arrow down the shape layer here and look at the things we're going to be changing. Will be rotation, inner radius, and maybe it's outer radius, I can't remember one of these, and inner roundness. So here we go. We're going to turn on the animation. I know we're going to rotate this, so we're going to get it right where we want it to start rotating. It's going to be right where he starts smiling. This is really where all the animation is going to start, is right where he starts to smile, right about there. So let's go to rotation. Going to click on rotation here on this little stopwatch there, and that starts the animation, adds a keyframe there. So that's the beginning there. Then we're going to move it to the end. At the very end, we actually want it to kind of be in this position. Actually, we could we'll take it to the end and rotate it here. So take it to the end, and I'm going to grab the rotation here. And once I start moving that, you'll notice it adds a keyframe over here because I've added a keyframe for the beginning position of the rotation. If I go to the end and start changing this, it'll add a keyframe and add that attribute to this area over here at that point of the timeline. So I'm going to grab this and grab it and just rotate it. Maybe about that much. Let's see how that looks. I just created the animation here. So now as we play through it, you'll notice the star rotates about that much there. Okay, so now we're going to change. We want this thing to start small and grow big. So we're going to go to Let's see, let's try the inner radius here. Inner radius, that just makes that big bulge in the middle, so that's not what we want to change right now. There we go. We're going to do the outer radius and the inner radius, actually both together. So we're going to add a keyframe on both inner radius and outer radius there. And now we're going to go to the end. We actually want it to end up this size and that fatness there. So we're going to add keyframes at the end by going down here and click, and I added those two keyframes over here that you'll see. So that keyframe, those two keyframes, that's where we want that to end up at. So I'm going to arrow over to the left right here, push this left button, and it will jump back to that other keyframe here. And now on the outer radius, I'm going to shrink this down. Actually, I could just click in here and do 0 because I know I want that to be at 0. And the inner radius, I want to be at 0 as well. So both those, so it's just this little skinny point there. Okay, so now that we changed that, you'll notice if we go back to the beginning that this thing is really small now. It's down, you can't see it. So now as we play through, it's going to suddenly appear. There it is, starting to appear. And as we play through, it's going to grow larger and rotate. Now we're going to add a couple other little effects to this. Now that we've got the animation taken care of, we're going to do a couple things to make that look a little bit more. So first of all, it looks really crisp, so we don't want it to look quite that crisp. It looks a little unrealistic. So not that this is very realistic in the first place, but we're going to go to the shape layer, and we're going to add some effects to the shape layer. So I'm going to pull down my workspace and set this for effects. I'm going to go over to our search engine here. I'm going to go to our search engine here in the effects panel, and we're going to type in GAU for Gaussian blur. I'm going to grab there's the Gaussian blur right there. I'm going to grab it, drag it to the shape layer, drop it onto the shape layer, and you'll notice under the shape layer here, if you can't see it, you just have to arrow that down. We're going to see the Gaussian blur. It shows up in our effects control panel here. As long as the shape layer is selected, you'll see that up there. And I'm going to zoom up onto this a little bit and just see how much blur I have to add. Right now it's really fine and crisp. I'm going to go probably about 2 pixels. Now you can kind of see that blurred out there a little bit, so it's not such a fine, crisp, hard edge there, and it looks a little bit, I guess, realistic. Shift question mark to zoom back out. And one more effect I'm going to add here. I'm going to add a lens flare on this, as if the twinkle is shining right directly into the lens there. So I'm going to go to, now to add this as an effect, the effect has to be applied to a separate layer. I'm going to apply it to a solid. I'm going to go to Layer and New Solid. We're going to do a composite with this. I'm going to make this solid all black. I'm going to click on this little color square here, grab this all the way down to black, and hit OK. Now hit OK there, and it makes a black solid out of it. The black solid completely covers everything. I'm going to go to Effects. I'm going to add, type in Lens in here, and you'll see this come up. You'll see Lens Flare right there under Generate. Grab that. Generators have to be applied to a solid layer usually, as opposed to a clip, because it's got to be composite. It'll take over the whole clip basically. So so I'm going to put that on the black solid. So now the black solid has a lens flare added to it. If you grab the little center of the lens flare here, you'll see it change angle. Here, so you can change the angle of the lens flare. But now I need to do a composite, so I'm going to go down to the black solid layer. I'm going to go down to toggle switches down here at the bottom. If you don't already see that window right here, the modes up here. So I'm going to hit toggle switches and modes. And then it brings up this mode right here that has a blending mode. The blending mode, I'm going to arrow down for the black solid and tell it to do a screen composite. It'll key out the black and leave in the brights and the colors there. Click on that, and suddenly it does this nice little key where you see everything is composited now. It's taking out the black of that video there. Oops, I just moved the whole clip. I want to move the center of the lens flare. So I'm going to go up and select the lens flare, and this appears right here. If you select the lens flare, I'm going to start this thing out on the center of this out on his tooth right there. Well, actually, I'm going to animate this. I'm going to go right to the beginning where the flare starts to show, right about there, and grab this and put it right there, and we're going to animate this in 2 different ways. We're going to animate where it's positioned as his teeth changes angles, and then we're going to change the size as he starts to smile and it gets bigger. The lens flare is going to grow. So I'm going to go up to my lens flare. Actually, I'm going to arrow this down so I can see it on my timeline. Go to Effects, go to Lens Flare. I'm going to add keyframes on the position of the flare, which is flare center, and the brightness of the lens flare as well. So I've added 2 keyframes right there. And I'm going to go to the end, add 2 more keyframes. I'm going to click, and I've added 2 more keyframes right there. And at the very end, now that I'm at the very end, I want this to be over the sparkle still. So now it's going to move slightly as we move through. You'll see right now it moves with its teeth. I just kind of did a basic animation and made it follow the lens flare. One other thing I'm going to change is the brightness. I don't want it to be so bright at the beginning. I want it to be at 0 at the beginning. So I'm going to go to the brightness at the beginning keyframe here. Turn my brightness down to, so I'm just going to click in there, click right there, add 0, hit return. Now you'll see it'll grow as he smiles, but it's kind of way too big there by the end. It's covering up my little tooth thing there. So I'm going to turn this brightness down. So right about there, just so it starts doing the lens flare. Just barely so it starts doing the lens flare, because it's going to continue to the next shot. So now as we play through this, I'm going to smile. And the lens flare is a little off at the beginning, so I'm going to change that. Go to the beginning, grab the center for the lens flare, move it right there. It's going to change that keyframe that I'm placed it on. Moved it over to the left a little bit so it's more right on top of the and that's still a little off, so I'm going to actually get it in the center here and kind of adjust the center keyframe right about there and get it right there so it kind of stays on that thing. We could track that center to the null as well if we wanted to, but that's good enough there. That's looking pretty good. I play through it. Let's deselect all these so we can kind of look at it. Play through it. And there we go. Now we're going to continue on to the next shot here and show you guys how to do that one. So now I'm going to move over to the second comp with the close-up here, and I'm going to go through this a lot faster because this is going to be very much of the same here. I'm going to go up. I'm going to deselect the layer, go up to the star, quickly draw a star here, go down to this poly star, arrow down. This is the same process as before, so I'm going to go through this pretty quick. Change this to a 4-point star. Now I'm going to change the inner radius. Change the inner roundness so it's a little bit fatter on the inside. Change the inner roundness so it's a little fatter on the inside. There we go, and make it a little bit bigger, right about there. Okay, now the main trick that I'm going to have to watch out for here is to make sure that the end frame here and the next frame, since it's editing from one cut to the next, is going to look the same. And look where this star is right here. It's pretty much, it depends on where your rotation ended, but look, this is like straight horizontal and vertical. So now I'm going to go back to 2, and I'm going to get that rotated into the exact position here. Going to rotate so it's kind of straight up and down like on the other one, and we've got it positioned over the same tooth over here. And now we're going to do basically the continuation of the rotation, and I'm going to let you guys kind of do the rest on this and figure it out. But you're going to do from there we're going to do the same rotation, the same change on making it grow on the animation, and also with the lens flare, you're going to put the lens flare back on the tooth and make it grow from where it took off in the previous shot here, about that big, where it appears to be that big. So when you cut to this one, it's going to be closer though. So the thing that you have to know on this one is it has to be. Now it's a close-up, so everything's going to be bigger in this shot as we cut closer. So you just scale things up, and there you go. So figure that out. I'm going to quickly do this, then I'll come back and play it for you so you kind of get an idea of how it should look from one edit to the next. Okay, so I got finished doing the same thing but on the close-up, made it bigger. So now as we play through it, you see you got the same thing going on, the lens flare growing and the sparkly twirling and growing larger, and I motion track that the same way with the null to the teeth. This one was easier to track a piece of his gum right here. To track, I just hit Command S and save it, or Control S on a PC. Go back to Premiere, and it will update in Premiere. And then the only thing you have to do is, I've already rendered it, but if you just hit return, if this stuff is red here, just hit return and the return key or enter key, and it will render that stuff there. Just hit the return key and it will render there, and it'll turn this green, and then it will play back full quality. And then you can watch the clip here. If you go large, you can watch the clip as it plays through, and then see what happens with those two clips together to make sure the edit looks good as it cuts from one shot to the next. Now it's going to cut to this shot. So the next thing we're going to show here quickly is the step on doing the light blasting this guy's face. So what we're going to do, I'm going to right click on this clip, make sure we're not taking the audio with it. So I'm going to option click on it, or alt click on it, and replace with After Effects composition. It'll send him over to After Effects with a third composition. If I go to the project, I got to arrange this for standard here, so I can see my project panel. There's my project panel, and there is the new composition it's sent over with its long name. I'm just going to hit return and name it Blinding Light in Face. Return. There's our new composition, Blinding Light in Face. Now the way we're going to do this is we're going to first of all duplicate this clip right here. I'm going to hit Command D or Control D on a PC to duplicate the clip. And now what we've got is we've got the clip on top of itself right here. So we basically got, if I grab this and move it, you'll see this clip is on top of itself. So we've duplicated the clip so it's on top of itself. What we're going to do is cut out a portion of it and make it brighter. I'm going to cut out a chunk of it and make it brighter, and composite it on top of the other one. So actually I'm going to do that right now with masking. So I'm going to turn off the layer below it so I can kind of see what I'm doing here. So now I'm going to go up to, with this top layer selected, the bottom one turned off, I'm going to go up to my pen tool. And I'm going to go to the end here because I want the mouse to end up at a certain location here. I want it. I'm going to kind of work backwards. I'm going to click and drag and create a Bezier curve here. Click, you hold it down and drag and make it a curve. So it's kind of this curvy sort of spline instead of a hard edge spline, so it looks a little bit more natural. And there we go, we've cut out and we've created a mask of just that portion of the image. If I turn on the one below it, now you see through it to the layer below it, but now we've got this layer here cut out. I choose my arrow, V as in Victor, and grab that and move it. You'll see I've cut out that chunk and put on top because we're going to make this actually brighter here than the clip below it. So now I'm going to go over to my effects panel. I'm under, if you don't see this, you can go under, pull this down and do effects. It'll bring it up. And under the search here, I'm going to type in brightness and do two different effects on this top layer. I'm going to grab brightness. I'm going to drag and drop it onto this top layer here. I'm going to go under brightness and I'm going to change this. Let's try 200, see what it gives us. That's looking pretty good. Oh, did it only go up to 100? Only went up to 100, so that's 100 brightness. So we might be able to do, let's try like 70. And that's probably going to do it right there. And turn down the opacity later if I think this is too bright. Now I'm also going to grab one more effect, glow, drag and drop that on. And it's going to blast this thing here. It's going to kind of do some posterization. I'm going to turn that down a little bit. I'm going to turn the threshold up. I like it a little bit more glowy like that. Let's turn the glow radius down. Let's mess with some stuff here. That's making it look, add a little bit of blur to it. The radius, try intensity, Turn down the intensity here and just get it where you kind of like it. But right there looks like it's just really blasting the skin. So that looks pretty good right there. Now I'm going to feather the edge of the mask so this doesn't look so harsh, because if you just click off of this, it's just got this hard line right now on his face. So I'm going to arrow down my top layer. So now remember, so what we've got here so far is this top layer here that's brightened and with a glow on it. It's pasted exactly over this clip here. So it's composited on top, so it looks like there's a bright light hitting him. And go under mask, and this mask on the top, I'm going to feather this off here. I'm going to click this and drag it, feather it so it looks a little bit more. Let's feather that way off. I'm taking it about to 200 there. So now that looks like a light blasting his face, but right now it's on his face the whole time. So we're going to make it look like it kind of suddenly hits him. So the end frame is really, I got it really where I like it there. So I'm going to, I'll leave that end frame alone, but I'm going to go down under mask and select my mask, and I'm going to turn on the keyframing for my mask path. Added a keyframe there. And now what I'm going to do is arrow back, hit page up a few times. I'm going to actually shrink my canvas here. Hold down Option or Alt and scroll out a little bit. Right about there. I'm going to hit H for hand, move this up a little bit because I want a little bit of room down here. And then now that I'm back a little further, let's go back a little bit further right there. I'm going to grab these nodes here. I'm going to make sure I'm on my arrow tool. Click in the middle here somewhere away from one of these nodes so it deselects them. I'm going to grab, undo that. So I'm going to grab my mask. I'm going to move these down a little bit. So at the end it's going to be at this position that I had it before. At the beginning right here, I'm going to have this thing, I'm going to pull all these things down below his face, and what it's going to do is this is going to grow up. All these keyframes I'm putting down here like this, so this mask is going to creep up onto his face and will animate. Let me bring all these down, kind of fix the Bezier on these things so they're nice and hidden. Like that. Like that. And this is going to animate this mask from this position here. I get it all off, turn the Bezier curves so it's off of his face. Go shrink that in a little bit. There we go. So now as we play through, you'll see this mask growing onto his face here. And actually, see, it hasn't grown all the way into his face yet, so it wouldn't be blinding him. So I'm just going to grab this last keyframe, drag it back like that, so it's blinding his eyes. Maybe a little bit earlier. Let's try it about right there. Grab this first keyframe, drag it to the beginning. Let's try that. Move those keyframes back. I still want that to hit his face just a little bit early, so he's like squinting before, right about there he's squinting. Let's try that. See how that works. So it grows up onto his face like that. He blinds him and it holds it right in his eyes. There you go. That looks pretty good. It's a pretty quick little animation. And the light blinds him in the face. There we go. So now he's blinded. I'm going to save that. Command S or Control S. Go back to Premiere. And it will be updated inside Premiere. Okay, so now what I'm going to show you guys next time, that's all I'm going to show on this week. So next week I'm going to show you guys how to composite the gun effect due to the gun shooting, the gun hitting him, and then finally the smile whitening the teeth at the end and making his teeth look really, really white, because that was kind of the intent of the commercials for Platinum Whites, to make the teeth look really white. So now I'm going to hit return and render that clip. Let it render. Play through and watch my video so far. Smiles, shines. Oops, I get my mouse. So he smiles, shines, and blinds him. He grabs his gun out. So anyway, until next week, go play more Minecraft and eat chips and salsa or something. Okay, bye.